evening, everyone. Oh, let me change the tag. I might change the name of it. John's Nook sounds a little stupid. What should it be called? I'll just not call it anything. But it's still out there. I might change my mind about it. Okay. War and Peace, Chapter 2. Anna Pavlovna's drawing room was gradually filling. The highest Petersburg society was assembled there. Beautiful people differing widely in age and character, but alike in the social circle to which they belonged. Prince Vasily's daughter, the beautiful Helene, came to take her father to the ambassador's entertainment. She wore a ball dress and her badge as maid of honor. The youthful little princess Volkonskaya, known as La Femme la plus séduisante de Petersburg, was also there. I don't know if I said that right. It's italicized in another language. She had been married during the previous winter, and being pregnant, did not go to any large gatherings, but only to small receptions. Prince Vasily's son, Hippolyte, had come with Mortemart, whom he introduced. The Abbé Morio and many others had also come. To each new arrival, Anna Pavlovna said, "You have not yet seen my aunt," or "You do not know my aunt?" and very gravely conducted him or her to a little old lady wearing large bows of ribbon in her cap, who had come sailing in from another room as soon as the guests began to arrive. And slowly turning her eyes from the visitor to her aunt, Anna Pavlovna mentioned each one's name and then left them. Each visitor performed the ceremony of greeting this old aunt, whom not one of them knew, not one of them wanted to know, and not one of them cared about. Anna Pavlovna observed these greetings with mournful and solemn interest and silent approval. The aunt spoke to each of them in the same words, about their health and her own, and the health of Her Majesty, who, thank God, was better today. And each visitor, though politeness prevented his showing impatience, left the old woman with a sense of relief at having performed the vexatious duty, and did not return to her the whole evening. The young Princess Bolkonskaya had brought some work in a gold-embroidered velvet bag. Her pretty little upper lip, on which a delicate dark brown was just perceptible, was too short for her teeth, but it lifted all the more sweetly, and was especially charming when she occasionally drew it down to meet the lower lip. As is always the case with a thoroughly attractive woman, her defect, the shortness of her upper lip and her half-open mouth, seemed to be her own special and peculiar form of beauty. Everyone brightened at the sight of the pretty young woman, so soon to become a mother, so full of life and health, and carrying her burden so lightly. Old men and dull, dispirited young ones, who looked at her after being in her company, and talking to her a little while, felt as if they too were becoming, like her, full of life and health. All who talked to her, and at each word saw her bright smile and the constant gleam of her white teeth, thought that they were in a specially amiable mood that day. The little princess went round the table with quick, short, swaying steps, her work bag on her arm, and gaily spreading out her dress, sat down on a sofa near the silver samovar, as if all she was doing was a pleasure to herself and to all around her. I have brought my work, she said in French, displaying her bag and addressing all present. Mind, Annette, I hope you have not played a wicked trick on me, she added, turning to her hostess. You wrote that it was to be quite a small reception, and just see how badly I am dressed. And she spread out her arms to show her short-waisted, lace-trimmed, dainty gray dress, girdled with a broad ribbon just below the breast. Soyez tranquille, Lise. You will always be prettier than anyone else, replied Anna Pavlovna. You know, said the princess in the same tone of voice and still in French, turning to a general, my husband is deserting me. He is going to get himself killed. Tell me what this wretched war is for, she added, addressing Prince Vasily, and without waiting for an answer, she turned to speak to his daughter, the beautiful Helene. What a delightful woman this little princess is, said Prince Vasily to Anna Pavlovna. One of the next arrivals was a stout, heavily built young man with close cropped hair, spectacles, the light-colored breeches fashionable at that time, a very high ruffle, and a brown dress coat. This stout young man was an illegitimate son of Count Bezukov, a well-known grandee of Catherine's time, who now lay dying in Moscow. The young man had not yet entered either the military or civil service, as he had only just returned from abroad where he had been educated, and this was his first appearance in society. Anna Pavlovna greeted him with the nod she accorded to the lowest hierarchy in her drawing room, but in spite of this lowest grade greeting, a look of anxiety and fear, as at the sight of something too large and unsuited to the place, came over her face when she saw Pierre enter. Though he was certainly rather bigger than the other men in the room, her anxiety could only have reference to the clever, though shy, but observant and natural expression which distinguished him from everyone else in the drawing room. It is very good of you, Monsieur Pierre, to come and visit a poor invalid, said Anna Pavlovna, exchanging an alarmed glance with her aunt as she conducted him to her. Pierre murmured something unintelligible and continued to look around as if in search of something. On his way to the aunt, he bowed to the little princess with a pleased smile, as to an intimate acquaintance. Anna Pavlovna's alarm was justified, for Pierre turned away from the aunt, without waiting to hear her speech about Her Majesty's health. Anna Pavlovna, in dismay, detained him with the words, Do you know the Abbe Morio? He is a most interesting man. Yes, I have heard of his scheme for perpetual peace, and it is very interesting, but hardly feasible. You think so? Rejoined Anna Pavlovna, in order to say something and get away to attend to her duties as hostess. But Pierre now committed a reverse act of impoliteness. First he had left a lady before she had finished speaking to him, and now he continued to speak to another who wished to get away. With his head bent and his big feet spread apart, he began explaining his reasons for thinking the Abbey's plan chimerical. We will talk of it later, said Anna Pavlovna with a smile. And having got rid of this young man who did not know how to behave, she resumed her duties as hostess and continued to listen and watch, ready to help at any point where the conversation might happen to flag. As the foreman of a spinning mill, when he has set the hands to work, goes round and notices here a spindle that is stopped, or there one that creaks or makes more noise than it should, and hastens to check the machine or set it in proper motion, so Anna Pavlovna moved about her drawing room, approaching now a silent, now a too noisy group, and by a word or slight rearrangement kept the conversational machine in steady, proper, and regular motion. But amid these cares her anxiety about Pierre was evident. She kept an anxious watch on him when he approached the group round Mortemart to listen to what was being said there, and again when he passed to another group whose center was the abbey. Pierre had been educated abroad, and this reception at Anna Pavlovna's was the first he had attended in Russia. He knew that all the intellectual lights of Petersburg were gathered there, and like a child in a toy shop, did not know which way to look, afraid of missing any clever conversation that was to be heard. Seeing the self-confident and refined expression on the faces of those present, he was always expecting to hear something very profound. At last he came up to Morio. Here the conversation seemed interesting, and he stood waiting for an opportunity to express his own views, as young people are fond of doing. Chapter 3. Anna Pavlovna's reception was in full swing. The spindles hummed steadily and ceaselessly on all sides, with the exception of the aunt, beside whom sat only one elderly lady, who with her thin, careworn face was rather out of place in this brilliant society. The whole company had settled into three groups. One, chiefly masculine, had formed round the abbey. Another, of young people, was grouped round the beautiful Princess Helene, Prince Vasily's daughter, and the little Princess Bolkonskaya, very pretty and rosy, though rather too plump for her age. The third group was gathered round Mortemart and Anna Pavlovna. The Vicomte was a nice-looking young man with soft features and polished manners, who evidently considered himself a celebrity, but out of politeness modestly placed himself at the disposal of the circle in which he found himself. Anna Pavlovna was obviously serving him up as a treat to her guests, as a clever maitre d'hotel serves up as a specially choice delicacy a piece of meat that no one who had seen it in the kitchen would have cared to eat. So Anna Pavlovna served up to her guests first the Vicomte and then the abbé, as peculiarly choice morsels. The group about Mortemart immediately began discussing the murder of the Duc d'Enghien. The Vicomte said that the Duc d'Enghien, I don't know what that is at all, Duc d'Enghien had perished by his own magnanimity, and that there were particular reasons for Buonaparte's hatred of him. Oh yeah, yes, do tell us all about it, Vicomte, said Anna Pavlovna, with a pleasant feeling that there was something a la Louis XV in the sound of that sentence. Cantes nous cela, Vicomte. The Vicomte bowed and smiled courteously in token of his willingness to comply. Anna Pavlovna arranged a group around him, inviting everyone to listen to his tale. The Vicomte knew the Duc personally. Duc, it's a D-U-C. Duc personally. whispered Anna Pavlovna to one of the guests. The Vicomte is a wonderful raconteur, said she to another. How evidently he belongs to the best society, said she to a third. And the Vicomte was served up to the company in the choicest and most advantageous style, like a well-garnished joint of roast beef on a hot dish. The Vicomte wished to begin his story and gave a subtle smile. We got a lot of food references. Come over here, Helene, dear, said Anna Pavlovna to the beautiful young princess who was sitting some way off the center of another group. The princess smiled. She rose with the same unchanging smile with which she had first entered the room, the smile of a perfectly beautiful woman. With a slight rustle of her white dress trimmed with moss and ivy, with a gleam of white shoulders, glossy hair, and sparkling diamonds, she passed between the men who made way for her, not looking at any of them, but smiling on all, as if graciously allowing each the privilege of admiring her beautiful figure and shapely shoulders, back and bosom, which in the fashion of those days were very much exposed, and she seemed to bring the glamour of a ballroom with her as she moved toward Anna Pavlovna. Helene was so lovely that not only did she not show any trace of coquetry, but on the contrary, she even appeared shy of her unquestionable and all too victorious beauty. She seemed to wish, but to be unable, to diminish its effect. How lovely, said everyone who saw her, and the Vicomte lifted his shoulders and dropped his eyes as if startled by something extraordinary when she took her seat opposite and beamed upon him also with her unchanging smile. Madame, I doubt my ability before such an audience. And he smilingly inclined his head. The princess rested her bare, round arm on a little table and considered a reply unnecessary. She smilingly waited. All the time the story was being told, she sat upright, glancing now at her beautiful round arm, altered in shape by its pressure on the table, now at her still more beautiful bosom, on which she readjusted a diamond necklace. From time to time she smoothed the folds of her dress, and whenever the story produced an effect, she glanced at Anna Pavlovna, at once adopted just the expression she saw on the maid of honor's face, and again relapsed into her radiant smile. The little princess had also left the tea table and followed Helene. Wait a moment, I'll get my work. Now then, what are you thinking of? She went on, turning to Prince Hippolyte. Fetch me my work bag. There was a general movement as the princess, smiling and talking merrily to everyone at once, sat down and gaily arranged herself in her seat. Now I am all right, she said, and asking the Vicomte to begin, she took up her work. Prince Hippolyte, having brought the work bag, joined the circle and moving a chair close to hers, seated himself beside her. Le charmant Hippolyte was surprising by his extraordinary resemblance to his beautiful sister, but yet more by the fact that in spite of this resemblance he was exceedingly ugly. His features were like his sister's, but while in her case everything was lit up by a joyous, self-satisfied, youthful, and constant smile of animation, and by the wonderful classic beauty of her figure, his face, on the contrary, was dulled by imbecility and a constant expression of sullen self-confidence, while his body was thin and weak. His eyes, nose, and mouth all seemed puckered into a vacant, wearied grimace, and his arms and legs always fell into unnatural positions. It's not going to be a ghost story, said he, sitting down beside the princess and hastily adjusting his lorgnette as if without this instrument he could not begin to speak. Why no, my dear fellow, said the astonished narrator, shrugging his shoulders. Because I hate ghost stories, said Prince Hippolyte in a tone which showed that he only understood the meaning of his words after he had uttered them. He spoke with such self-confidence that his hearers could not be sure whether that he said what he said was very witty or very stupid. He was dressed in a dark green dress coat, knee breeches of the color of Quest de Nymphe Effraie, as he called it, shoes and silk stockings. The Vicomte told his tale very neatly. It was an anecdote, then current, to the effect that the Duc d'Enghien had gone secretly to Paris to visit Mademoiselle George, that at her house he came upon Bonaparte, who also enjoyed the famous actress's favors, and that in his presence Napoleon happened to fall into one of the fainting fits to which he was subject, and was thus at the Duke's mercy. The latter spared him, and this magnanimity Bonaparte subsequently repaid by death. The story was very pretty and interesting, especially at the point where the rivals suddenly recognized one another and the ladies looked agitated. Charming, said Anna Pavlovna with an inquiring glance at the little princess. Charming, whispered the little princess, sticking the needle into her work as if to testify that the interest and fascination of the story prevented her from going on with it. The Vicomte appreciated this silent praise, and smiling gratefully, prepared to continue, but just then Anna Pavlovna, who had kept a watchful eye on the young man who so alarmed her, noticed that he was talking too loudly and vehemently with the abbé, so she hurried to the rescue. Pierre had managed to start a conversation with the abbé about the balance of power, and the latter, evidently interested by the young man's simple-minded eagerness, was explaining his pet theory. Both were talking and listening too eagerly and too naturally, which was why Anna Pavlovna disapproved. The means are the balance of power in Europe and the rights of the people, the abbé was saying. It is only necessary for one powerful nation like Russia, barbaric as she is said to be, to place herself disinterestedly at the head of an alliance having for its object the maintenance of the balance of power in Europe, and it would save the world. But how are you to get that balance? Pierre was beginning. At that moment, Anna Pavlovna came up and, looking severely at Pierre, asked the Italian how he stood the Russian climate. The Italian's face instantly changed and assumed an offensively affected, sugary expression, evidently habitual to him when conversing with women. I am so enchanted by the brilliancy of the wit and culture of the society, more especially of the feminine society in which I have had the honor of being received, that I have not yet had time to think of the climate, said he, not letting the abbé and Pierre escape. Anna Pavlovna, the more conveniently to keep them under observation, brought them into the larger circle. Just then another visitor entered the drawing room, Prince Andrew Bolkonsky, the little princess's husband. He was a very handsome young man of medium height, with firm, clear-cut features. This is chapter 4, everything about him, from his weary, bored expression to his quiet, measured step, offered a most striking contrast to his lively little wife. It was evident that he not only knew everyone in the drawing room, but had found them to be so tiresome that it wearied him to look at or to listen to them. And among all these faces that he found so tedious, none seemed to bore him so much as that of his pretty wife. He turned away from her with a grimace that distorted his handsome face, kissed Anna Pavlovna's hand, and screwing up his eyes, scanned the whole company. "You are off to the war, Prince?" said Anna Pavlovna. "General Kutuzov," said Bolkonsky, speaking French and stressing the last syllable of the general's name like a Frenchman. has been pleased to take me as an aide de camp. And Lise, your wife, she will go to the country. Are you not ashamed to deprive us of your charming wife? Andre, said his wife, addressing her husband in the same coquettish manner in which she spoke to other men. The Vicomte has been telling us such a tale about Mademoiselle George and Bonaparte. Princess Andrew screwed up his eyes and turned away. Pierre, whom from the moment Prince Andrew entered the room had watched him with glad, affectionate eyes, now came up and took his arm. Before he looked round, Prince Andrew frowned again, expressing his annoyance with whoever was touching his arm. But when he saw Pierre's beaming face, he gave him an unexpectedly kind and pleasant smile. There now, so you too are in the great world, said he to Pierre. I knew you would be here, replied Pierre. I will come to supper with you, may I? He added in a low voice so as not to disturb the Vicomte, who was continuing his story. No, impossible, said Prince Andrew, laughing and pressing Pierre's hand to show that there was no need to ask the question. He wished to say something more, but at that moment Prince Vasily and his daughter got up to go, and the two young men rose to let them pass. You must excuse me, dear Vicomte, said Prince Vasily to the Frenchman, holding him down by the sleeve in a friendly way to prevent his rising. The unfortunate fete at the ambassador's deprives me of a pleasure and obliges me to interrupt you. I am very sorry to leave your enchanting party, said he, turning to Anna Pavlovna. His daughter, Princess Helene, passed between the chairs, lightly holding up the folds of her dress, and the smile shone still more radiantly on her beautiful face. Pierre gazed at her with rapturous, almost frightened eyes as she passed him. Very lovely, said Prince Andrew. Very, said Pierre. In passing, Prince Vasily seized Pierre's hand and said to Anna Pavlovna, educate this bear for me. He has been staying with me a whole month, and this is the first time I have seen him in society. Nothing is so necessary for a young man as the society of clever women. Chapter 5. Anna Pavlovna smiled and promised to take Pierre in hand. She knew his father to be a connection of Prince Vasily's. The elderly lady who had been sitting with the old aunt rose hurriedly and overtook Prince Vasily in the anteroom. All the affectation of interest she had assumed had left her kindly and tear-worn face, and it now expressed only anxiety and fear. How about my son Boris, Prince? She said, hurrying after him in the anteroom. I can't remain any longer in Petersburg. Tell me what news I may take back to my poor boy. Although Prince Vasily listened reluctantly and not very politely to the elderly lady, even betraying some impatience, she gave him an ingratiating and appealing smile, and took his hand that he might not go away. What would it cost you to say a word to the Emperor, and that he would be transferred to the guards at once? Said she. Believe me, Princess, I am ready to do all I can, answered Prince Vasily, but it is difficult for me to ask the Emperor. I should advise you to appeal to Rumyantsev through Prince Golitsyn, though that would be the best way. The elderly lady was a Princess Drobetskaya, belonging to one of the best families in Russia, but she was poor, and having long been out of society, had lost her former influential connections. She now had come to Petersburg to procure an appointment in the guards for her only son. It was, in fact, solely to meet Prince Vasily that she had obtained an invitation to Anna Pavlovna's reception, and had sat listening to the Vicomte's story. Prince Vasily's words frightened her, and an embittered look clouded her once handsome face, but only for a moment. Then she smiled again and clutched Prince Vasily's arm more tightly. Listen to me, Prince, she said. I have never yet asked you for anything, and I never will again, nor have I ever reminded you of my father's friendship for you. But now I entreat you for God's sake to do this for my son, and I shall always regard you as a benefactor, she added hurriedly. No, don't be angry, but promise. I have asked Golitsyn, and he has refused. Be the kind-hearted man you always were, she said, trying to smile through tears, though tears were in her eyes. Papa, we shall be late, said Princess Helene, turning her beautiful head and looking over her classically molded shoulder as she stood waiting by the door. Where was I? Influence in society, however, is capital, which has to be economized if it is to last. Prince Vasily knew this, and having once realized that if he asked on behalf of all who begged of him, he would soon be unable to ask for himself, he became chary of using his influence. But in Princess Drobetskaya's case, he felt, after her second appeal, something like qualms of conscience. She had reminded him of what was quite true. He had been indebted to her father for the first steps in his career. Moreover, he could see by her manners that she was one of those women, mostly mothers, who, having once made up their minds, will not rest until they had gained their end, and are prepared, if necessary, to go on insisting day after day and hour after hour, and even to make scenes. This last consideration moved him. My dear Anna Mikhailovna, said he with his usual familiarity and weariness of tone, it is almost impossible for me to do what you ask, but to prove my devotion to you and how I respect your father's memory. I will do the impossible. Your son shall be transferred to the guards. Here is my hand on it. Are you satisfied? My dear benefactor, this is what I expected from you. I knew your kindness. He turned to go. Wait, just a word. When he has been transferred to the guards, she faltered. You are on good terms with Michael Illarionovich Kutuzov. Recommended Boris to him as adjutant. Then I shall be at rest. And then Prince Vasily smiled. No, I won't promise that. You don't know how Kutuzov is pestered since his appointment as commander-in-chief. He told me himself that all the Moscow ladies have conspired to give him all their sons as adjutants. No, but do promise. I won't let you go, my dear benefactor. Papa, said his beautiful daughter in the same tone as before, We shall be late. Well, au revoir. Goodbye. You hear her? Then tomorrow you will speak to the Emperor? Certainly, but about Kutuzov, I don't promise. Do promise, Vasily, cried Anna Mikhailovna as he went, with the smile of a coquettish girl, which at one time probably came naturally to her, but was now very ill suited to her careworn face. Apparently, she had forgotten her age, and by force of habit employed all of the old feminine arts. But as soon as the prince had gone, her face resumed its former cold, artificial expression. She returned to the group where the Vicomte was still talking, and again pretended to listen, while waiting till it would be time to leave. Oh, that's hilarious. Her task was accomplished. And what do you think of this latest comedy, The Coronation at Milan? Asked Anna Pavlovna. And of the comedy of the people of Genova and Lucca, laying their petitions before Monsieur Bonaparte, and Monsieur Bonaparte sitting on a throne and granting the petitions of the nations? Adorable. It is enough to make one's head whirl. It is as if the whole world has gone crazy. Prince Andrew looked Anna Pavlovna straight in the face with a sarcastic smile. Dio me la donna, gare a chi la touche. God has given it to me, let him who touches it beware. Bonaparte's word at his coronation. They say he was very fine when he said that, he remarked, repeating the words in Italian. Dio mi l'ha dato, guai a chi la toci. I'm sorry, I don't speak Italian. I'm not good at pronouncing other words. I don't have a very good vocabulary. I hope this will prove that last drop will make. I hope this will prove the last drop that will make the glass run over. Anna Pavlovna continued. The sovereigns will not be able to endure this man who is a menace to everything. God has given it to me. Let him who touches it beware. The sovereigns. I do not speak of Russia, said the Vicomte, polite but hopeless. The sovereigns, Madame. What have they done for Louis the 17th? For the Queen, or for Madame Elizabeth? Nothing. And he became more animated. And believe me, they are reaping the reward of their betrayal of the Bourbon cause. The sovereigns. Why, they are sending ambassadors to compliment the usurper. And sighing disdainfully, he again changed his position. Prince Hippolyte, who had been gazing at the Vicomte for some time through his lorgnette, suddenly turned completely round towards the little princess, and having asked for a needle, began tracing the Condé coat of arms on the table. He explained this to her with as much gravity as if she had asked him to do it. Baton de Gueules and Grella de Gueules de Azur Maison Conde, he said. The princess listened, smiling. If Bonaparte remains on the throne of France a year longer, the Vicomte continued, with the air of a man who, in a matter with which he is better acquainted than anyone else, does not listen to others but follows the current of his own thoughts, things will have gone too far. By intrigues, violence, exile, and executions, French society, good French society, will have been forever destroyed, and then he shrugged his shoulders and spread out his hands. Pierre wished to make a remark, for the conversation interested him, but Anna Pavlovna, who had him under observation, interrupted. "The Emperor Alexander," said she, with melancholy, which always accompanied any reference of hers to the imperial family, has declared that he will leave it to the French people themselves to choose their form of government, and I believe that once free of the usurper, the whole nation will certainly throw itself into the arms of its rightful king," she concluded, trying to be amiable to the royalist immigrant. "That is doubtful," said Prince Andrew. "Monsieur le Vicomte quite rightly supposes that matters have already gone too far. I think it will be difficult to return to the old regime." "From what I have heard," said Pierre, blushing and breaking into the conversation, "almost all the aristocracy has already gone over to Bonaparte's side." "It is the Bonapartists who say that," replied the Vicomte without looking at Pierre. "At the present time, it is difficult to know the real state of French public opinion. Bonaparte has said so," remarked Prince Andrew with a sarcastic smile. It was evident that he did not like the Vicomte and was aiming his remarks at him, though without looking at him. "I showed them the path to glory, but they did not follow it," Prince Andrew continued after a short silence, again quoting Napoleon's words. "I opened my antechambers and they crowded in. I do not know how far he was justified in saying so." "Not in the least," replied the Vicomte. "After the murder of the Duke, even the most partial ceased to regard him as a hero. If to some people," he went on, turning to Anna Pavlovna, "he ever was a hero, after the murder of the Duke, there was one martyr more in heaven and one hero less on earth." Before Anna Pavlovna and the others had time to smile their appreciation of the Vicomte's epigram, Pierre again broke into the conversation, and though Anna Pavlovna felt sure he would say something inappropriate, she was unable to stop him. "The execution of the Duc d'Enghien," declared Monsieur Pierre, "was a political necessity, and it seems to me that Napoleon showed greatness of soul by not fearing to take on himself the whole responsibility of that deed." "Dieu, mon Dieu," muttered Anna Pavlovna in a terrified whisper. "What, Monsieur Pierre, do you consider that assassination shows greatness of soul?" said the little princess, smiling and drawing her work nearer to her. "Oh, oh," exclaimed several voices. "Capital," said Prince Hippolyte in English, and began slapping his knee with the palm of his hand. The Vicomte merely shrugged his shoulders. Pierre looked solemnly at his audience over his spectacles and continued. "I say so," he continued desperately, "because the Bourbons fled from the revolution, leaving the people to anarchy, and Napoleon alone understood the revolution and quelled it, and so for the general good he could not stop short of the sake of one man's life." "Won't you come over to the other table?" suggested Anna Pavlovna. But Pierre continued his speech without heeding her. "No," cried he, becoming more and more eager. Napoleon is great because he rose superior to the revolution, suppressed its abuses, preserved all that was good in it, equality of citizenship and freedom of speech and of the press, and only for that reason did he obtain power. Yes, if having obtained power, without availing himself of it, to commit murder, he had restored it to the rightful king. I should have called him a great man," remarked the Vicomte. "He could not do that. The people only gave him power that he might rid them of the Bourbons, and because they saw that he was a great man." The The revolution was a grand thing, continued Monsieur Pierre, betraying by this desperate and provocative proposition his extreme youth and his wish to express all that was in his mind. What? Revolution and regicide a grand thing? Well, after that. But won't you come to this other table? Repeated Anna Pavlovna. Rousseau's Contrat Social, said the Vicomte with a tolerant smile. I am not speaking of regicide, I am speaking about ideas. Yes, ideas of robbery, murder, and regicide, again interjected an ironical voice. Those were extremes, no doubt, but they are not what is most important. What is important are the rights of man, emancipation from prejudices, equality of citizenship, and all these ideas Napoleon has retained in full force. Liberty and equality, said the Vicomte contemptuously, as if at last deciding seriously to prove to this youth how foolish his words were. High-sounding words which have long been discredited. Who does not love liberty and equality? Even our Savior preached liberty and equality. Have people since the Revolution become happier? On the contrary, we wanted liberty, but Bonaparte has destroyed it. Prince Andrew kept looking with an amused smile from Pierre to the Vicomte, and from the Vicomte to their hostess. In the first moment of Pierre's outburst, Anna Pavlovna, despite her social experience, was horror-struck. But when she saw that Pierre's sacrilegious words had not exasperated the Vicomte, and had convinced herself that it was impossible to stop him, she rallied her forces and joined the Vicomte in a vigorous attack on the orator. But my dear Monsieur Pierre, said she, how do you explain the fact of a great man executing a duke, or even an ordinary man who is innocent and untried? I should like, said the Vicomte, to ask how Monsieur explains the 18th Brumaire. Was not that an imposture? It was a swindle, and not at all like the conduct of a great man. And the prisoners he killed in Africa? That was horrible, said the little princess, shrugging her shoulders. He's a low fellow, say what you will, remarked Prince Hippolyte. Pierre, not knowing whom to answer, looked at them all and smiled. His smile was unlike the half-smile of other people. When he smiled his grave, even rather gloomy. When he smiled, his grave, even rather gloomy look was instantaneously replaced by another, a childlike, kindly, and even rather silly look, which seemed to ask forgiveness. The Vicomte, who was meeting him for the first time, saw clearly that this young Jacobin was not so terrible as his words suggested. All were silent. How do you expect him to answer you all at once, said Prince Andrew. Besides, in the actions of a statesman, one has to distinguish between his acts as a private person and as a general and as an emperor, so it seems to me. Yes, of course, Pierre chimed in, pleased at the arrival of this reinforcement. One must admit, continued Prince Andrew, that Napoleon as a man was great on the bridge of Arcola and in the hospital at Jaffa, where he gave his hand to the plague-stricken. But there are other acts which it is difficult to justify. Prince Andrew, who had evidently wished to tone down the awkwardness of Pierre's remarks, rose and made a sign to his wife that it was time to go. Suddenly, Prince Hippolyte started up, making signs to everyone to attend, and asking them all to be seated, began. I was told a charming Moscow story today, and must treat you to it. Excuse me, Vicomte, I must tell it in Russian, or the point will be lost. And Prince Hippolyte began to tell his story in such Russian as a Frenchman would speak after spending about a year in Russia. Everyone waited so emphatically and eagerly did he demand their attention to his story. There is in Moscow a lady, una dame, and she is very stingy. She must have 2 footmen behind her carriage, very big ones. That was her taste. And she had a lady's maid, also big. She said, here Prince Hippolyte paused, evidently collecting his ideas with difficulty. She said, oh yes. She said, girl, to the maid, put on livery, get up behind the carriage, and come with me while I make some calls. Here Prince Hippolyte spluttered and burst out laughing long before his audience, which produced an effect unfavorable to the narrator. Several persons, among them the elderly lady and Anna Pavlovna, did, however, smile. She went. Suddenly there was a great wind. The girl lost her hat, and her long hair came down. Here he could contain himself no longer and went on, between gasps of laughter, and the whole world knew. And so the anecdote ended, though it was unintelligible why he had told it, or why it had to be told in Russian. Still Anna Pavlovna and the others appreciated Prince Hippolyte's social tact in so agreeably ending Pierre's unpleasant and unamiable outburst. After the anecdote, the conversation broke up into insignificant small talk about the last and next balls, about theatricals, and who would meet whom, and when and where. Chapter 6. Having thanked Anna Pavlovna for her charming soiree, the guests began to take their leave. Pierre was ungainly, stout, about the average height, broad, with huge red hands. He did not know, as the saying is, how to enter a drawing room, and still less how to leave one. That is, how to say something particularly agreeable before going away. Besides this, he was absent-minded. When he rose to go, he took up instead of his own the general's 3-cornered hat, and held it, pulling at the plume, till the general asked him to restore it. All his absent-mindedness and inability to enter a room and converse in it was, however, redeemed by his kindly, simple, and modest expression. Anna Pavlovna turned towards him, and with a Christian mildness that expressed forgiveness of his indiscretion, nodded and said, I hope to see you again, but I also hope you will change your opinions, my dear Monsieur Pierre. When she said this, he did not reply and only bowed, but again everybody saw his smile, which said nothing, unless perhaps opinions are opinions. But you see what a capital, good-natured fellow I am, and every one, including Anna Pavlovna, felt this. Prince Andrew had gone out into the hall, and turning his shoulders to the footman, who was helping him on with his cloak, listened indifferently to his wife's chatter with Prince Hippolyte, who had also come into the hall. Prince Hippolyte stood close to the pretty, pregnant princess and stared fixedly at her through his eyeglasses. Go in, Annette, or you'll catch cold, said the little princess, taking leave of Anna Pavlovna. It is settled, she added in a low voice. Anna Pavlovna had already managed to speak to Lise about the match she contemplated between Anatole and the little princess's sister-in-law. I rely on you, my dear, said Anna Pavlovna, also in a low tone. Write to her and let me know how her father looks at the matter. Au revoir. And she left the hall. Prince Hippolyte approached the little princess and, bending his face close to her, began to whisper something. 2 footmen, the princess's and his own, stood holding a shawl and a cloak, waiting for the conversation to finish. They listened to the French sentences, which to them were meaningless, with an air of understanding, but not wishing to appear to do so. The princess, as usual, spoke smiling, spoke smilingly and listened to with a laugh. I am very glad I did not go to the ambassador, said Prince Hippolyte. So dull. It has been a delightful evening, is it not? Delightful. They say the ball will be very good, replied the princess, drawing up her downy little lip. All the pretty women in society will be there. Not all, for you will not be there. Not all, said Prince Hippolyte, smiling joyfully, and snatching the shawl from the footman, whom he even pushed aside. He began wrapping it round the princess, either from awkwardness or intentionally. No one could have said which. After the shawl had been adjusted, he kept his arm around her for a long time, as though embracing her. Still smiling, she gracefully moved away, turning and glancing at her husband. Prince Andrew's eyes were closed, so weary and sleepy did he seem. Are you ready? He asked his wife, looking past her. Prince Hippolyte hurriedly put on his cloak, which in the latest fashion reached to his very heels, and stumbling in it, ran out into the porch following the princess, whom a footman was helping into the carriage. Princess, au revoir, cried he, stumbling with his tongue as well as with his feet. The princess, picking up her dress, was taking her seat in the dark carriage. Her husband was adjusting his saber. Prince Hippolyte, under pretense of helping, was in everyone's way. Allow me, sir, said Prince Andrew in Russian, with a cold, disagreeable tone to Prince Hippolyte, who was blocking his path. I'm expecting you, Pierre, said the same voice, but gently and affectionately. The postilion started. The carriage wheels rattled. Prince Hippolyte laughed spasmodically as he stood in the porch waiting for the Vicomte, whom he had promised to take home. Well, mon cher, said the Vicomte, having seated himself beside Hippolyte in the carriage. Your little princess is very nice, indeed, quite French, and he kissed the tips of his fingers. Hippolyte burst out laughing. Do you know you are a terrible chap for all your innocent airs? Continued the Vicomte. I pity the poor husband, that little officer who gives himself the airs of a monarch. Hippolyte spluttered again, and amid his laughter said, And you are saying that the Russian ladies are not equal to the French? One has to know how to deal with them. Pierre, reaching the house first, went into Prince Andrew's study like one quite at home, and from habit immediately lay down on the sofa. Took from the shelf the first book that came to his hands. It was Caesar's Commentaries, and resting on his elbow began reading it in the middle. What have you done to Millie? Scherer. She will be quite ill now, said Prince Andrew, as he entered the study, rubbing his small white hands. Pierre turned his whole body, making the sofa creak. He lifted his eager face to Prince Andrew, smiled, and waved his hand. The abbey is very interesting, but he does not see the thing in the right light. In my opinion, perpetual peace is possible, but I do not know how to express it, not by balance of political power. It was evident that Prince Andrew was not interested in such abstract conversation. One can't everywhere say all one thinks, mon cher. Well, have you at least decided on anything? Are you going to be a guardsman or a diplomatist? Asked Prince Andrew after a momentary silence. Pierre sat on the sofa with his legs tucked under. Really, I don't yet know. I don't like either the one or the other. But you must decide on something. Your father expects it. Pierre, at the age of 10, had been sent abroad with an abbé as tutor, and had remained away till he was 20. When he returned to Moscow, his father dismissed the abbey and said to the young man, "Now go to Petersburg, look around, and choose your profession. I will agree to anything. Here is a letter to Prince Vasily, and here is money. Write to me all about it, and I will help you in everything." Pierre had already been choosing a career for 3 months and had not decided on anything. It was about this choice that Prince Andrew was speaking. Pierre rubbed his forehead. "But he must be a Freemason," said he, referring to the abbé whom he had met that evening. "That is all nonsense," Prince Andrew again interrupted him. "Let us talk business. Have you been to the horse guards? No, I have not. But this is what I have been thinking and wanted to tell you. There is a war now against Napoleon. If it were a war for freedom, I could understand it and should be the first to enter the army. But to help England and Austria against the greatest man in the world is not right." Prince Andrew only shrugged his shoulders at Pierre's childish words. He put on the air of one who finds it impossible to reply to such nonsense. But it would in fact have been difficult to give any other answer than the one Prince Andrew gave to this naive question. If no one fought except for his own conviction, there would be no wars, he said. "And that would be splendid," said Pierre. Prince Andrew smiled ironically. "Very likely it would be splendid, but it will never come about." "Well, why are you going to the war?" asked Pierre. "What for? I don't know. I must. Besides that, I am going." He paused. "I am going because the life I am leading here does not suit me." It's a lot of social drama. It's like a lot of interpersonal drama, almost like gossip, or just, I don't know. If it was like a story being told about another person, it would be gossip. But it was a book about fictional characters, I'm assuming. So I guess it's not technically gossip, but I don't know. Political dramas are boring. I didn't really remember anything that I just read. Honestly, I'm focusing more on being able to read, understand, process, interpret, and speak properly each individual word than I am understanding the sentences. So I'm really thinking more about the words and making sure that I'm speaking properly and reading the words and that I understand each individual word than I am paying attention to the sentences. But I haven't really practiced reading in a long time. So maybe I'll get better. We'll see. I'm going to catalog it. I'm going to chronologue it, or whatever you call it. I'm going to blog it, vlog it, glog it, game log, glog. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. It's hard to read, but I take the challenge and enjoy that. The subject isn't interesting so far, but I mean, this is a thick book. It's like It's like 2¼ inches wide, 2¼ inches thick, and it's about 9¼ inches long, and it's yeah, about 6¼ inches this way. No, this way. Yeah. It's a well-bound book. It's a beautiful crimson or scarlet, maybe. I'm not a color person. I'm not much of an artist. So I don't know the specific names of the different shades of colors. I like the word crimson and I like the word scarlet. Crimson's cool though. I have a room in my house painted poinsettia red, like the red of poinsettias that they put out at church during Christmas. So it's got a bunch of little filigree and geometric designs. There's some little crosses, some little bows. I don't know what they are. They look like little shamrocks maybe. And then some little heart tower things and some bridges. With some little, I don't know, they kind of look like crown bumps on the outside, little crown spikes. I think it's leather. This is Leo Tolstoy. I don't know if I'm saying that right. He was born in 1828 and died in 1910. I've heard his name quite a bit, but I've never read any of his books. So now I have an opportunity to. I think that's great. I've heard it's one of the harder ones to read, one of the harder ones to understand, because it's one of the old classics. I think it was originally in Russian. This must be a translation. I think Leo Tolstoy was a Russian philosopher, but I've never studied philosophy. I've studied philosophical ideas to some extent, but I've never read the works of other philosophers. I mean, if you want to know what I'm educated in, just look up the curriculum of, let's see, I started school in, I have no idea, 1993, and graduated in 2007. Iberia, Louisiana public education system. I had a couple private schools in there, 1 year each. They did a good job, I think. I've heard this guy's name before. I've never read any of his stuff. I've probably heard some of his ideas on YouTube. And I'm probably familiar with some of his ideas from just the works of other people. A lot of other fiction. So we'll see. I don't know much about him, but this is a long book to read. So we'll see how I feel when I make it through it. Let's grow together. I'm gonna do my best not to stop while I'm reading. I'm gonna leave it as is, because being that I'm streaming it, there will be a recorded version, so you can just pause it if you want to repeat something or look up a word for later. Because this is not a completely selfless act to read this book online. It's a motivational strategy. So right now my focus is on diction. I practice diction a little bit every day. After I brush my teeth, I have a series of words on the wall to help me practice my pronunciation. And I'm practicing these words. It's unfortunate to not know a word when you're reading, because that's what slows down the reading process for me when I'm reading. It's practice, man. It's just putting in minutes until you can put in hours. Same with anything. So that's what I do. I wonder what opinion I'll have of the book in the first, second, third, etc. parts of the story. And then I wonder what I'll think about it days, weeks, months after finishing it. And then I wonder what I'll think about it if I ever read it again. Because that's just how the brain works. It's like the more you learn stuff, the more a human being learns stuff, it opens up doors in the brain. It's like it's hard to explain, but if you ever experienced it, you'll understand what I mean. If you've ever really noticed growth to the point that you can do it repeatedly, you'll understand what I'm saying. I practiced learning. When I was playing with all the other kids in the park, when we were real little, we went through a bunch of different games. One of them was powers. Like, what powers did we have? And I never had favorites. I didn't have favorites, so I didn't really want to choose a power. So there was a little while that I used to joke that my superpower was learning, because I seemed like to learn things pretty quickly. And I've noticed that like there's a lot of crossover when learning different skills, and doing things completely unrelated. If you've gone deep enough into one way, it's like first hill yet, so I'm at the bottom of the hill. Sorry about the hair, man. I know it looks wild, but I don't brush my hair. I wanted to see what would happen. It's also a religious thing for me. I'm not supposed to cut my hair. I'm not supposed to brush it except with my fingers. And I don't know. It's an easy thing to follow, so why not follow it? It's like super easy. You just don't cut your hair. And that's it. It's not like you get anything from it. It's not like one of those rituals that the Satan worshippers and paganists and stuff do. It's not a ritual to get something. It's just like, this is my hat. It says that I'm, I don't know. It's kind of a pain in the butt to have a head, like a full head of hair and beard. I think about shaving it all the time, just buzzing it. I might, but I want to try it for a while, because it is easy, but it does get to be a pain in the butt. I spent a long time with short hair, so I haven't really gotten used to it, especially with it all matted up like this. It's weird, but I'm getting used to it. I just wash it regularly and it's fine. But that's probably why it's matted, because I wash it all the time and I don't dry it. Hot showers are really good for body pain. It's kind of inconvenient if you have long hair though, so I just figure I just get used to it. I wonder if that's contributing to my hair loss, but I think it was stress. I've noticed significant regrowth, so I think I've learned to adjust things. Also, I think that hair loss could be related to athlete's foot. Like a fungus, skin rash. So I've been using an antifungal bar soap. Because, my first experience with athlete's foot and all that came with that was when I was doing college athletics. And that sucks. Locker rooms, working out, sharing sweat with other people, because you get all their stuff. It's gross. So stuff like antifungal soap, antibacterial soap is good to help fight the funk that comes with, like if you go to the gym, you never know. There are people who don't ever bathe and use the equipment and don't wipe down the equipment. So they could have some kind of illness, and if you don't wipe down your equipment, you might get sick. So I wipe down my equipment before and after my exercise. Also, if you're doing any kind of martial arts, I always take a shower before and after, and I make sure to scrub, because I don't want to bring anything to the class, and I don't want to take anything from it that's not martial arts skill and that kind of thing. Same thing if you're like a sportsman, for
locker rooms or servicemen. You know, that's another reason. I think I got athlete's foot in the barracks. So antifungal soap is a new thing. I don't remember the name of it. Got one with sulfur in it. I don't know why, but got it on Amazon. Makes me smell like a match sometimes. I hope I don't spontaneously combust. Things have been good, everybody. My New Year's resolution. I'm doing a pretty good job of it. All along here, there's little baby hairs, like new growth forests. It's great to see. Same thing with this. I kept messing with it, fidgeting with it, and all the loose hairs would pull out and stuff, so it was kind of stringy. It's like biting nails, you know, it's a stress thing I was doing. So I think I probably pulled my hair out, running my fingers through it and stuff. That's why I don't even brush it with my fingers anymore. I try to just leave it alone, towel dry it. Because, like I've said, man, I get it that it's fairly common for men to have hair loss, but it's weird because some men lose their hair and some men don't, so it doesn't seem normal. I don't know. What if it's connected to something else that we just don't know about? Like I said, maybe a fungus. Because, and this is why I think that it's a fungus. And it sounds stupid, but hear me out. Like athlete's foot. I have moss in my yard. I grew up cutting grass. I think it was St. Augustine grass that grew where I'm from. I grew up cutting grass as my chore, my main chore, and the way that I made money growing up. I grew up in a mobile home park with nearly 100 lots, 100 families, and I usually charged $10 for one lot, which was their entire yard. And I could do pretty good. I never really needed money, so I only ever really cut grass for my mom as a chore, and sometimes they give me money for it, but it was, that was my chore. Yard work, cut branches, trim trees, pull weeds, cut grass, pick up trash, and occasionally someone would request a yard, someone to cut their grass, so I had the benefit of being able to cut their grass. So 5 yards, and I could buy a N64 video game or something, or a Game Boy game. So it was pretty good work. I pushed a lawnmower a real long time. Thick grass. I don't like cutting sparse grass. I like my grass thick. I don't care how hard it is to cut. I like it thick. It's more satisfying. So I spent a lot of time trying to increase the grass density in my yard. I actually just a couple of years ago, I think, I don't remember exactly when, dug up about a 6x6 square in my yard and planted a bunch of centipede grass because it grows very well in this climate. and it's one of those grasses that's real rich, and it's good for children to run on. It's real spongy, but dense, like AstroTurf. It's really good for children to play on, and I know this because that's one of my favorite games when I was growing up was tag, and it's just real good. It's good to fall on if you run around, because it's soft, you know. So it's good grass. So I've been working for a real long time. Um, I've had this house 10 years. It'll be 10 years in December. And there was a lot of moss, which is beautiful. It's great. I love it. I love all the moss. But the problem with moss is a child running around will slip on moss and potentially break their arm. So I've been working years to try to dig up all the moss in my yard and scrape up all the moss and fight the moss and plant seed and try not to break my bank doing it, you know. Plus I had a bunch of injuries, so like there's like 5 years that I couldn't do anything. At least 5 years that I couldn't do anything because I just was leapfrogging injuries. So I have a lot of work to do. I just cut down some trees the other day, which is good. I can build for a bonfire. I got a sheath for my machete finally. There was one on Amazon for $6. It was great, perfect. Now I feel comfortable sharpening it. I got a sharpening stone coming in the mail. That's how I like to prune my yard, is with a machete. It has a saw on one side, so it's like super versatile. It's fun too. I've been using them for a long time. Then you get a nice cozy bonfire at the end of all the yard trimming. It's great. If I had a lot of people in my life, I would invite them over and make it a party, but I'm ashamed of my house is set up to train and raise a child. It's not really set up right now to host friends. You know, like I mean, I can change it around real easy, but when I was married, I set it up for visitors because I thought, well, we're gonna just be the type of people who, if we have friends, they come to our house. Was my goal, because I like my house, man. I like to mess with my yard, and I like to do stuff while I'm visiting. It's super cool if I have someone in my neighborhood. That was fun growing up like that, but I don't know. I got a lot of stuff to do with my house, so I almost feel a little bit competitive about it, even though I'm so far behind the pack in hosting ability. Like, I would like to be a good host, you know? I enjoy making people happy in my home. I like to barbecue. I like to smoke brisket. I like to cook gumbo. And I practice at it because I enjoy to see the look on people's faces whenever they eat my food and it's good, or they're comfortable at my house, or there's something cool. I don't know, it's kind of cool because I mean, all I do is like I train. I'm a certified personal trainer. I'm a novice. I haven't started working yet. I've just got the certification, and I'm trying to lose weight so people don't scoff at me when I go put in my application. And I'm making good progress with that. So, yeah. I don't remember what I was talking about. Um, I don't know what to say. I can't sleep. I've been having bouts of serious awakeness over the past couple nights. So, things have been pretty good though. How about you? I'd be asking more questions to you, but I can't hear the answers, so it would be kind of fruitless. But I mean, if you want, I can leave a space here for you to respond to me. How are you doing? I'm not gonna pretend that I'm listening to you. That would be weird. I don't hear anything, so I can't respond to anything. I also don't think that I'm being impatient because I'm just. It's kind of weird to be leaving a moment of silence for no like for an unknown response. But I don't know. I thought it might be fun. So how are you? Sorry for interrupting. If you gotta keep talking, um, like if you have enough to talk about that you have more to say, I'm gonna ask you politely to pause the video because I have no way of knowing how long you're gonna continue to talk, and I don't want to just sit here. So, pause the video because I'm about to move on. Alright, I ain't got anything else to say.